Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about innovation. It is without a doubt one of the biggest challenges for any organization. Get it right, you lead the market. Get it wrong, you become a memory. So how do you actually build a team that doesn't just survive, but innovates again and again?
Just look at the stakes here. On one side, you've got a powerhouse like Pixar. We're talking 17 Academy Awards, billions at the box office, an absolute machine of creative and commercial success. And on the other side, well, you've got the cautionary tales. Kodak, right? They dominated photography for a century, but completely missed the digital revolution. Their stock price plummeted 94%. Or Motorola, they literally invented the cell phone, but couldn't keep up with smartphones and lost billions. The difference maker wasn't one single idea. It was building a culture that could innovate continuously.
And that success was no accident. Ed Catmull, one of Pixar's co-founders, said something really profound. He said after Toy Story became a huge hit, his real goal wasn't just to make another movie. It was to build an environment where that kind of magic could happen over and over again. Think about that. He wasn't trying to command innovation. He was trying to create the conditions for it. And that's a huge insight for any leader.
So in this explainer, we're going to break down the playbook for doing just that. First, we'll uncover the secret sauce for innovation. Then we'll dive into the 6 key plays, building the right group norms, designing smart teams and networks, showing leadership support, and finally, creating smart incentives that actually work.
All right, let's get into it. First up, the secret sauce for innovation. What is it really, and where does it even come from?
Okay, first things first, we need a really clear distinction. Creativity is coming up with a new and useful idea, but innovation? That's the implementation and execution of that idea. A great brainstorm session is awesome, but it's not innovation. Innovation only happens when that brilliant idea becomes a new product, a better process, or a service that actually reaches a customer. It's about making it real.
So the million-dollar question for any leader is, what fuels that? How do you get from that initial creative spark to a real, tangible innovation? What are the core ingredients you need in your organization?
Well, a whole lot of research points to 2 critical factors. The first is what's called employee voice. That's basically people feeling safe enough to speak up. And the second is knowledge sharing, the active exchange of ideas and expertise. If you don't have these 2 things, your best ideas will either die in silence or stay stuck in a silo.
Let's dig into employee voice for a second. It's all about people feeling like they can communicate ideas or concerns without fear of being shut down or punished. When your team members are afraid to rock the boat, their ideas never even get heard. And if an idea isn't articulated, there's a 0% chance it can be implemented. Voice is what makes creativity visible.
And then you've got knowledge sharing. This is how you tap into the collective brain power of your entire organization. Get this, a massive review of over 70 different studies confirmed that when teams actively share what they know, their performance goes up. They're more cohesive and they're more satisfied. It's the difference between one person's good idea and an amazing idea that's been sharpened by everyone's expertise.
Okay, so let's get into our playbook. The very first play is all about developing the right group norms. This is about shaping the unspoken rules that guide how your team interacts, day in and day out.
So how do you actually do that? Well, the research shows you have to actively build trust and publicly praise people who are willing to help their colleagues. You're trying to build a culture where sharing what you know is just what we do here. One study found that teams with a polite and respectful communication style were way more willing to share knowledge, and teams that were more extroverted in their style weren't just willing, they were eager to share. So as a leader, you have to model and set the tone for that respectful, open dialogue.
All right, play number 2. This is so interesting. It's about how the very structure of your team can either supercharge innovation or totally kill it. It's all about being strategic with your team design.
And this chart just makes it crystal clear. Employee voice absolutely thrives in smaller, self-managed teams. The kind where leadership might rotate and peer feedback is a normal thing. It creates the sense of shared ownership and reduces that fear of speaking up to the boss. On the flip side, large, rigid, hierarchical teams, they tend to suppress voice. The structure itself sends a message to stay quiet.
So the takeaway is you've got to be deliberate about this, keep your team small, delegate real authority, and make it a habit to directly ask your newer team members for their ideas. That signals their input is valuable from day one, and it's not enough to say you have an open door policy. You have to actually practice non-defensive listening. You have to show through your actions that you genuinely welcome being challenged.
But, smart team design isn't just about what happens inside the team bubble. Often, the very best ideas are a mashup of different perspectives. And that means you have to actively manage interactions outside your immediate group.
This is all about breaking down silos. Research shows that our weaker ties, connections to people we don't work with every day, are incredibly valuable for creativity because they expose us to totally new information. As a leader, your job is to encourage your team to build those bridges, support networking, reward cross-team collaboration, and celebrate people who reach across those organizational boundaries.
Okay, this next play is huge. A leader's direct, personal behavior sends the most powerful signals to a team. Let's look at how your actions determine whether people feel safe enough to speak up and share.
This quote from the Harvard Business Review just nails it. Trust flees authority. It's just a natural human instinct to be wary of disagreeing with your boss, and that fear is a powerful silencer of great ideas. Your #1 job as an innovation leader is to overcome that fear.
And your actions speak way louder than words here. Of course, being open and approachable is step one, but research also shows a direct link between ethical leadership, acting with fairness and integrity, and higher employee creativity. Here's a simple but game-changing shift. Talk about lessons learned instead of mistakes made. That one change in framing reframes failure as a source of knowledge, not a source of shame. And that builds the psychological safety people need to take creative risks.
But look, support can't just come from one good manager. For innovation to really take root, that feeling of support has to be embedded in the entire organization. It has to be part of the culture.
And here's a really fascinating finding from the research. It's not just your direct boss who matters. It turns out that an employee's perception of their skip-level leader, their boss's boss, has a huge impact on whether they're willing to speak up. If senior leaders seem unapproachable or dismissive, that creates a chill that is felt all the way down the organization. So this means that support for innovation has to come from every level. Organizations need to actively cut the red tape that stifles communication. And senior leaders, you can't just say you have an open door. You have to actually walk through that door, get out of your office, meet people where they are, and listen way more than you talk. Finally, giving people more autonomy and control over their own work is a powerful way to increase their sense of ownership and their desire to make things better.
All right, our final play in the playbook is about incentives. Because let's be real. At the end of the day, what gets measured and rewarded is what gets done. Your performance management system can either be a powerful tool for innovation or a massive barrier.
And this isn't some fluffy, feel-good idea. There is hard data on this. A major study of 136 tech companies found that HR practices focused on building commitment, things like trust, cooperation, and knowledge exchange, had a massive impact on the bottom line. We're talking an 18.8% increase in sales growth and a nearly 17% jump in sales from new products. This stuff directly drives financial performance.
So how do you do it? You have to intentionally design your performance management system to promote voice and knowledge sharing. That means it needs to be more about development and less about just evaluation. It means using 360-degree feedback so you hear from everyone, not just the manager. And most importantly, it means creating real incentives, like promotions or bonuses, for the behaviors that lead to better knowledge sharing. You have to make it crystal clear that this work is valued.
So, there you have it. The playbook is pretty clear. Innovation isn't about hoping some lone genius has a breakthrough. It's about systematically building a culture. It's about shaping norms, designing smarter teams, showing up as a leader, and building incentives that prove speaking up and sharing are what you value most. Look, this is not just a theoretical exercise. These are concrete, evidence-backed steps that you can take right now. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Looking at that playbook, what is the one thing you will change tomorrow to start unlocking the incredible, innovative potential that's already sitting there in your team?